The trade fair buzzed with excitement. Hundreds of colonists packed into the central plaza of New Haven. Their faces turned toward the raised platform where the Velkari delegation stood. Taewon Kim pressed himself against the back wall, trying to stay invisible. At 14, he had mastered the art of not being noticed. The worms were beautiful. 6 of them coiled in separate containment fields, their scales shimmering with colors that seemed to shift and flow like living rainbows. Each worm was about 10 feet long, serpentine and graceful. The Velkari handlers stood beside them, tall and elegant in their flowing robes. Ambassador Velthara stepped to the front of the platform. Her voice carried across the plaza without any need for amplification. Today we honor the ancient tradition of the bonding. These young worms have reached maturity. They will choose their companions through the song. Taewon watched as the first worm was brought forward. A wealthy merchant stood in the selection circle. The worm lifted its head and a sound filled the air. It was not quite music, not quite words. The sound seemed to bypass his ears and speak directly to something deeper. The crowd gasped as golden light flowed between the worm and the merchant. The bond was made. One by one, the worms chose their partners. A scientist, a diplomat, a ship captain. Each time the song rang out and the crowd cheered. Taewon found it fascinating how the worms seemed to know exactly who they wanted. The Velkari explained that the worms could sense something in people, some quality that made them compatible. Then came the last Wyrm. She was smaller than the others, and her scales were a dull silver. Instead of the vibrant colors her siblings displayed, she stayed curled in the corner of her containment field, her head tucked under her coils. The crowd murmured. This did not look promising. And finally, Ambassador Velthara said, though her voice carried less enthusiasm now, "We present Shimmer." The name seemed almost cruel. The worm's scales barely caught the light. 3 candidates stepped forward into the selection circle. They waited. The crowd fell silent, expecting the song. Nothing happened. The worm slowly uncurled and lifted her head. Taewon could see her clearly from his position. Her eyes were large and dark, and even from this distance he could see intelligence in them. She looked at the 3 candidates. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her scales flickered weakly, showing brief flashes of color that died almost immediately. The candidates shifted uncomfortably. One of them stepped back, then another. The third followed. The worm lowered her head again. The crowd began to whisper. Ambassador Velthara's expression hardened. She made a gesture, and 2 Velkari handlers stepped forward. "My apologies," she announced. "This worm is defective. She cannot perform the Song of Bonding. She will be returned to Velkari space for proper disposal." Taewon felt something tighten in his chest. The word disposal hung in the air like a threat. He looked at the worm again. She had gone completely still, making herself as small as possible. Her scales had lost all color, turned gray as stone. No one else seemed bothered. The crowd was already dispersing, talking excitedly about the successful bondings they had witnessed. The defective Wyrm was already forgotten. Taewon stayed where he was, watching as the handlers deactivated the containment field and led the worm away. She followed them without resistance, her head low. That night, Taewon could not sleep. He kept seeing those dark eyes, that moment when the worm had opened her mouth and nothing came out. He kept hearing that word, disposal. He knew what it meant. The Velkari did not keep defective worms. They considered it a mercy to end their lives quickly. But there had been nothing wrong with her eyes. Nothing wrong with the way she moved. Just no song. At midnight, Taewon made a decision. He slipped out of his room, past his mother's quarters. Dr. Ha-Yoon Park worked late most nights at the research station, but she would be furious if she knew what he was planning. He pushed the thought aside. The holding facility was at the edge of the colony near the small spaceport. Taewon had been there before with his mother. He knew the codes to the outer doors because she had let him help with her work sometimes. The security was light. After all, what kind of criminal would break into an alien holding facility? The corridors were empty. Taewon found the containment room easily. Through the transparent door, he could see the worm. She was alone in a bare cell, curled tight again. A status board on the wall showed her transport was scheduled for 0600 hours. 6 in the morning. Less than 6 hours away. Taewon checked the corridor again. No guards. He supposed they did not bother guarding a worm that was just going to be destroyed anyway. He used his mother's secondary access code. the one she thought he did not know about. The door slid open with a soft hiss. The worm's head came up instantly. She watched him enter, her body tense. Up close, Taewon could see that her scales were not truly gray. They held a faint shimmer like moonlight on water. Her eyes were even more intelligent than he had thought. They studied him carefully, looking for threat. Taewon held up his hands, trying to show he meant no harm. "Hey," he said softly. "I am not going to hurt you." He moved slowly toward the control panel that managed her containment field. The worm watched every movement. "They are going to kill you tomorrow. That is not right. You are not broken. I can see it." He deactivated the containment field. The shimmer of energy that had surrounded the worm faded away. She was free to move, but she did not move toward him or past him. She simply watched, waiting to see what he would do next. "I have a place," Taewon continued, speaking as much to calm himself as to communicate with her. "It is safe. No one goes there. You can hide until I figure out what to do." The worm tilted her head. Then slowly she moved toward him. Not threatening, just approaching. She came close enough that he could have touched her if he reached out. She looked at him for a long moment. Then her scales flickered with color. Just for an instant, a pattern of blues and greens rippled down her body before fading back to silver. Taewon had no idea what it meant, but it felt like an answer. "Okay," he said.
"Follow me."
"Stay quiet." They left the holding facility together. Taewon led her through the back ways of the colony. Paths he had learned during years of avoiding bullies and crowds. The worm moved silently, keeping to the shadows. Twice they had to hide when night patrol passed. But the guards were not looking for a boy and a stolen worm. Why would they be? The forest began at the eastern edge of the colony. Taewon plunged into it without hesitation. The worm followed. They moved through the darkness for 20 minutes before reaching Taewon's secret place. It was a precursor structure. Most people thought the ruins were farther out, in the official dig sites, but Taewon had found this one 2 years ago and told no one. It was small, just a single chamber half buried in the hillside. The walls were made of something smooth and dark that was not quite stone and not quite metal. Strange symbols covered every surface. Taewon had brought supplies here over the months. Blankets, some food, his data pad with all his research on the precursor civilization. It was his sanctuary. Now it would be hers too. The worm entered the chamber and immediately began examining everything. Her head moved from side to side as she took in the walls, the symbols, the small pile of Taewon's belongings. Then she turned back to him. Her scales flickered again, stronger this time. A cascade of colors flowed down her body in a complex pattern. Taewon stared. The colors, the sequence, the timing. It looked almost like language, like the symbols on the walls. He grabbed his data pad and pulled up his photographs of the precursor texts. He had spent months trying to decipher them with no success. He held the pad so the worm could see it. "These symbols," he said, "do they mean anything to you?" The worm looked at the screen. Her scales exploded with color. Pattern after pattern rippled across her body, matching the symbols he was showing her. She was not broken. She was not defective. She was speaking, just not in any language the Velkari recognized. Taewon felt his heart hammering. "You can understand these. You can speak this language." The worm's scales pulsed with what could only be called excitement. Taewon sat down hard on the floor. This changed everything. This meant the precursors had not just built ruins and disappeared. They had left something behind. A language. A way to communicate. And somehow this rejected worm knew it. "Okay," Taewon said, his mind racing. "Okay, we have a lot of work to do." The worm settled beside him, her scales still shimmering with faint colors. Outside, the forest was dark and quiet. Inside the ancient precursor chamber, a boy and a worm began the slow process of learning to speak to each other. Neither of them knew they had just started something that would shake 2 civilizations. 5 days passed. Taewon stopped going to school. His mother barely noticed. Dr. Hyun Park spent most of her time at the research station, buried in her work studying Verdant Prime's ecosystem. Taewon left notes saying he was spending time at the library, which was not completely a lie. The precursor chamber had become his library. The progress was slow but incredible. Shimmer could not speak with sound, but her scales showed everything she wanted to say. Each color meant something. Each pattern had purpose. Taewon had filled his datapad with notes, creating a dictionary of color language. Blue meant water or liquid. Red meant heat or danger. Green meant life or growth. But it was more complex than simple word-to-color matching. The patterns flowed and changed, creating sentences and ideas. "Tell me again," Taewon said, watching Shimmer's scales carefully. "Where did you learn this?" Shimmer's scales darkened, then began to pulse with a complex sequence, deep purple mixed with silver, flowing in waves down her body. Taewon had learned this meant memory, specifically old memory. Then came patterns he was still learning to read. Images, almost. Her scales showed scenes that he had to interpret. "You were born with this knowledge," Taewon said slowly, checking his interpretation against what he had learned. "Your people used to speak like this long ago." Before the song, Shimmer's scales flashed bright green. "Yes. Agreement." Taewon sat back, thinking. The Velkari believed the Song of Bonding was ancient, something their species had always possessed. But what if they were wrong? What if the song was actually new, and worms like Shimmer carried genetic memories from before? That would mean she was not defective. She was a throwback, an echo of something older. "Why do your people not understand this anymore?" Taewon asked. The patterns that flowed across Shimmer's scales were sad, blues and grays mixing together. She showed him images of change, of time passing, of forgetting. The Velkari had changed. They had developed the song and forgotten the old ways. Now when a worm like Shimmer was born, carrying the ancient language in her genes, they saw her as broken. They did not recognize their own history. "That is horrible," Taewon said quietly. "They are killing their own past." Shimmer moved closer to him. Her scales shifted to warm oranges and soft yellows. Gratitude. She was grateful that he understood, that he had saved her. "We need to figure out what to do," Taewon said. "I cannot hide you forever. Eventually someone will notice." As if summoned by his words, Taewon's communicator chirped. His mother's voice came through, sharp and worried. "Taewon Kim, where are you?" "I came home early and you are not here. The school says you have not attended classes for 5 days. You need to answer me right now." Taewon closed his eyes. He had known this was coming. "I am okay, Mom. I am safe." "That does not answer my question." "Where are you?" "The old precursor site. The small one. I found something important." There was a long pause. "Then stay there. I am coming to you. And you had better have a good explanation." The connection cut off. Taewon looked at Shimmer. "My mother is coming. She is a scientist. Maybe she will understand." Shimmer's scales flickered with uncertainty. "Grays and dark blues, fear, I know," Taewon said. "But we need help. We cannot do this alone." Dr. Hyun Park arrived 30 minutes later. She came through the forest like a storm, her face set with anger and worry. But when she ducked into the precursor chamber and saw Shimmer, she stopped dead. "Taewon," she said very carefully. "Please tell me that is not a Velkari worm." "This is Shimmer," Taewon said. "And before you get angry, you need to see something." He showed his mother everything. The color patterns, his notes, the way Shimmer's scales matched the precursor symbols. Dr. Park watched in silence, her scientific mind already analyzing what she was seeing. When Taewon finished his demonstration, his mother sat down slowly. "This should not be possible," she said. "The precursors disappeared thousands of years ago. The Velkari are not that old as a spacefaring species. There should be no connection." Shimmer's scales began to pulse with patterns. Taewon had learned to read basic messages now. "She says the precursors did not disappear. They transformed. They spread their influence across many species. They left markers, seeds of knowledge." Dr. Park stared at the worm. "You can understand her?" "We have been working on it for 5 days," Taewon said. "Mom, she is not defective. She carries ancient genetic memory. The Velkari forgot their own history." Before his mother could respond, heavy footsteps echoed from outside. Captain Dongwoo Choi appeared at the chamber entrance, his hand on his weapon. Behind him stood 2 security officers. "Dr. Park," the captain said grimly, "we tracked your communicator signal. We need to talk about the stolen Velkari property." "She is not property," Taewon said immediately. "She is alive. She is an alien creature that belongs to the Velkari delegation," Captain Choi said. "There are laws, Taewon. Diplomatic agreements. You cannot just steal a worm because you feel sorry for it." "I can prove she is important," Taewon insisted. "Give me a chance." Captain Choi looked ready to refuse, but Dr. Park held up a hand. "Dongwoo, look at this. Really look." She gestured at Shimmer, at the walls covered in precursor symbols, at Taewan's notes. My son has made a discovery. This Wyrm is communicating through precursor color language. Do you understand what that means? The captain frowned. It means the Wyrm is weird. It does not change the law. It means there is a connection between the precursors and the Valkyrie that nobody knew about, Dr. Park said firmly. It means this Wyrm might be crucial to understanding the ruins. You know the colonial charter. Scientific discoveries take precedence over diplomatic convenience. Captain Choi clearly did not like that, but he could not argue with the charter. You have 48 hours, he said finally. Prove this Wyrm is scientifically important, or she goes back to the Valkyrie. And Taewan, you are not to leave this site without supervision. Are we clear? Taewan nodded, relief washing through him. 2 days. He had 2 days to prove Shimmer's worth. After the captain left, Dr. Park turned to her son. You should have told me immediately. Do you understand how much danger you put yourself in? The Valkyrie could have demanded your arrest. Would you have helped me if I asked? Taewan shot back. His mother opened her mouth, then closed it. After a moment, she said quietly, I do not know. But we are past that now. Show me everything you have learned. They worked through the night. Dr. Park was brilliant when she focused, and she had resources Taewan lacked. She brought equipment from the research station. She took scans of Shimmer's scales, analyzed the color wavelengths, compared them to the precursor symbols. By morning, she had confirmed what Taewan suspected. The match was perfect. Shimmer was speaking an ancient language. This is going to cause chaos, Dr. Park said, staring at her data. The Valkyrie believe the song is sacred. Finding out they forgot an older way to communicate? It challenges their entire culture. Shimmer's scales suddenly flashed red, sharp, urgent red. Then patterns began to flow faster than Taewan had ever seen. Wait, slow down, Taewan said. I cannot read that fast. But Shimmer kept signaling, her scales practically glowing with urgency. Dr. Park pulled up a real-time analysis on her equipment, trying to parse the wavelengths. She is saying something about the ruins, about danger, about something waking up. Taewan focused on the patterns, trying to catch the meaning. Images formed in the color sequences. A network. Something vast and sleeping. And something else, judgment, evaluation, threat. The precursors, Taewan breathed. She is saying they are not gone. They are dormant. And we are waking them up. Dr. Park went pale. That is impossible. Shimmer's scales flashed the color for truth. Deep, solid blue-white. Then more patterns. A countdown. A timeline. Something building toward a critical point. How long? Dr. Park asked. Shimmer showed them. 3 days. 72 hours. Whatever the precursors had left behind, whatever they had become, it was about to activate. And from the urgent red that kept flashing through Shimmer's patterns, it was not going to be friendly. Taewan looked at his mother. We need to tell people. We need to warn them. Who is going to believe us? Dr. Park asked. We have a stolen Wyrm making light shows and a boy who claims he can read ancient alien language. They will think we have gone crazy. Then we need to make them believe, Taewan said. He looked at Shimmer. Can you show them? Can you make the ruins respond? Shimmer's scales flickered with uncertainty. Then slowly they shifted to determined orange-red. She would try. Okay, Dr. Park said, her voice tight. We go to the Colonial Council. We show them everything, and we pray they listen before it is too late. She contacted Captain Choi and requested an emergency council meeting. The captain agreed, probably because he wanted this situation resolved. By noon, they were standing in the council chambers. Taewan, his mother Shimmer, and a very skeptical group of colonial administrators. Ambassador Velthera was there too, her expression cold. This is highly irregular, she said. The Wyrm should have been returned to us days ago. The Wyrm has a name, Taewan said. And she has something to tell you. He nodded to Shimmer. She moved to the center of the chamber, her scales beginning to glow. The light grew brighter and brighter. Then she pulsed a pattern directly at the walls of the council building. The Colonial Council meeting had not ended well. Half the administrators wanted to believe the evidence. The other half thought it was an elaborate trick. Ambassador Velthara had left in cold silence, refusing to comment. Captain Choi had called in scientific teams to analyze the holographic projections, but analysis took time. Time they apparently did not have. Taewan sat outside the council building with Shimmer coiled beside him. His mother was still inside arguing with officials. Through the windows, he could see her gesturing forcefully at data displays. She was doing her best, but he could tell she was losing. They do not want to believe it, Taewon said quietly to Shimmer. It is too scary. Easier to think we are wrong. Shimmer's scales flickered with understanding, soft blues and grays. She had expected this. Her own people had rejected her for being different. Why would humans or Valkyrie be any better? A shadow fell across them. Taewon looked up to see Eunji-kwon standing there. She was in his grade at school, athletic and popular. Everything Taewon was not. They had never really spoken before. So you're the kid who stole an alien worm, Eunji said. She did not sound mocking, just curious. I did not steal her, Taewon said defensively. I saved her. From what? From being killed for being different. Eunji studied Shimmer for a long moment. She really can talk through those color patterns? Yes. That is actually pretty cool, Eunji said. She sat down beside them without asking permission. My dad is on the council. He thinks you are either a genius or crazy. Maybe both. What do you think? Eunji shrugged. I think if you were going to make something up, you would pick something less weird. So you probably believe it. Question is whether you are right. Before Taewon could answer, the ground shook. It was subtle, just a tremor, but it made all three of them freeze. Shimmer's scales flashed urgent red. Was that an earthquake? Eunji asked. No, Taewon said, his stomach sinking. It is starting. More tremors followed over the next hour. Small ones barely noticeable, but the scientific sensors scattered around the colony started registering anomalies. Energy readings near the precursor ruins were spiking. Equipment malfunctions were increasing. And at the main dig site 5 miles from the colony, the ancient structures were glowing. Dr. Park emerged from the council building looking exhausted. They are forming an investigation committee, she said. In 3 days. We do not have 3 days, Taewon said. It is happening now. His mother knew he was right. She could see the energy readings same as he could. Then we need to move faster than bureaucracy. She looked at Eunji. What are you doing here? Watching history, Eunji said. Or the end of the world. Hard to tell which yet. Despite everything, Dr. Park almost smiled. Come with us. We are going to the main dig site. They took a colony transport vehicle. Captain Choi had forbidden them from leaving the colony, but Dr. Park ignored the order. She was a senior researcher. She had clearance to visit the dig sites. The fact that she was bringing her son and a stolen worm was something she decided not to mention to the gate guards. The precursor ruins came into view as they crested a hill. The main site was extensive, covering several acres. Ancient buildings rose from the ground, their surfaces smooth and dark. Human researchers had set up a base camp nearby, but it was abandoned now. Everyone had been recalled to the colony during the diplomatic situation with the Valkyrie. The buildings were glowing. Soft blue-white light pulsed from the symbols carved into every surface. It looked almost alive, like a heartbeat. That is new, Dr. Park said quietly. They approached carefully. Shimmer moved ahead of them, her scales reflecting the pulsing light from the ruins. She seemed drawn to the largest structure, a building that looked like a cathedral made of that strange, not-quite-stone material. She knows where to go, Taewon said. They followed the Wyrm into the structure. Inside, the light was stronger. The walls were covered in symbols, thousands of them, all glowing now. The air felt thick with energy, making the hair on Taewon's arm stand up. In the center of the main chamber stood something new. It had not been there the last time researchers visited. A pillar of light, solid and bright, extending from floor to ceiling. Symbols flowed through it like fish in a stream. Shimmer approached the pillar. Her scales began to pulse in rhythm with the light. She was communicating with it. What is she saying? Dr. Park asked. Taewon watched the patterns carefully. She is asking questions, trying to understand what it wants. What does what want? A new voice made them all jump. Ambassador Velthara stood at the entrance to the chamber, flanked by 2 Valkyrie guards. Her expression was no longer cold. She looked shaken. How did you find us? Dr. Park asked. Every Valkyrie can sense their worms, the ambassador said. Even defective ones. I felt Shimmer moving toward this place. I followed. She looked at the pillar of light. We have been wrong about many things. What do you mean? Taewon asked. Ambassador Velthara was silent for a long moment. Then she said, The Valkyrie High Council has been receiving reports for 6 months. Strange phenomena near precursor sites across 3 star systems. We suppress the information to prevent panic. But it is getting worse. This morning, one of our colonies went completely dark. No communication. When a ship investigated, they found the colonists alive but changed. They no longer speak. They only create light patterns, like your shimmer does. The horror of that settled over them. The precursors are transforming people? Dr. Park asked. We do not know what the precursors are doing, Velthara admitted. That is why I came here. If this worm truly can communicate with them, we need her help. Shimmer suddenly pulled back from the pillar of light. Her scales flashed a rapid sequence. Taewon caught fragments of the meaning. Evaluation, judgment, worthiness, test. It is evaluating us, Taewon said. The precursor system. It watches species that enter this part of space. It tests them somehow. If they pass, they are allowed to continue. If they fail, they are transformed into something else, Velthara finished. Absorbed into the network. We have 3 days before it makes its final judgment. Why 3 days? Yoonji asked. Why not just judge us now? The answer came not from Shimmer but from the pillar itself. Symbols rearranged themselves, forming words in multiple languages, human, Velkari, and the ancient color language. The message was clear. The system gave time for civilizations to prove themselves, to show their true nature. It had been watching how humans and Velkari interacted, watching how they treated each other, watching what choices they made when facing the unknown. So what do we do? Captain Choi's voice startled them all. He stood at the entrance, weapon drawn but not aimed at anyone. I followed you on sensors. Someone needs to keep you all from getting killed. He looked at the pillar. That thing is judging us. It is judging whether we are worthy to exist, Dr. Park said. Worthy by what standard? Shimmer's scales pulsed with patterns. Taewon translated. Empathy, wisdom, the ability to grow beyond self-interest. It wants to know if we are going to be good for the galaxy or dangerous to it. Captain Choi lowered his weapon. So what is our answer? I think, Velthara said slowly, that we need to decide that together. Human and Velkari. We need to show the precursor system that we can cooperate, that we can see value even in things we do not understand. She looked directly at Shimmer. I have spent my life believing worms like her were mistakes, defects to be disposed of. I was wrong. She carries something precious that we forgot. If I can learn that, perhaps our species can learn other things. It was not quite an apology, but it was a start. Shimmer's scales shifted to soft greens. Acceptance. We need to tell people what we have learned, Dr. Park said. The whole colony. Both species. Everyone needs to know what we are facing. They returned to the colony as night fell. The sky was full of ships now. More Velkari vessels had arrived, probably responding to Velthara's reports. Human patrol ships circled nervously. The two species were not quite allies, not quite enemies, but definitely uncertain about each other. The colonial governor called an emergency assembly. Every colonist who could attend packed into the main square. Velkari representatives joined them, an unprecedented mixing of the two species. Dr. Park presented the evidence, the holographic displays, the energy readings. Ambassador Velthara spoke about the transformed colony. Shimmer stood in the center, her scales displaying patterns that had been translated into both human and Velkari languages on giant screens. The precursors are testing us, Dr. Park concluded. We have 60 hours to prove we deserve to pass that test. The crowd erupted in questions, fear, anger, denial, but also, Taewon noticed, determination. Humans were good at facing impossible situations. They did not give up easily. Yoonji climbed onto a platform beside him. Hey, she shouted. Everyone listen. Her voice carried across the square. People quieted down. Fighting about this does not help. Panicking does not help. We need to figure out what the precursors want to see. So what do we do best? What makes humans special? We adapt, someone called out. We survive, another voice added. We never give up, Captain Choi said. We care about each other, Taewon said quietly. But his words were picked up by the speakers. Even when others say something is worthless, we find value in it. 36 hours remained when the precursor network sent its invitation. The message appeared simultaneously on every screen in the colony and every Velkari ship. It was simple and direct. Send representatives to the central chamber. Come prepared to be evaluated. Come prepared to speak for your species. The Colonial Council spent 2 hours arguing about who should go. Everyone wanted to send their best diplomats, their smartest scientists, their strongest leaders. But Taiwan knew none of that mattered. The precursors had been watching. They already knew what kind of leaders humans and Velkari had. They wanted something else. "It should be me," Taiwan said. The council chamber fell silent. All the adults turned to look at him. "Absolutely not," his mother said immediately. "He is right," Ambassador Velthara said quietly. Everyone stared at her. The boy and the Wyrm are what started this. They are what the precursors have been observing most closely. Their bond, their communication, the choice the boy made to save something everyone else had rejected. That is what the precursors want to see. "He is 14 years old," Dr. Park said, her voice tight with fear. "You cannot send a child to face an alien intelligence that could destroy us all." "I am going anyway," Taiwan said, "with or without permission. Shimmer knows I need to be there. So do I." His mother looked at him for a long moment. Then she closed her eyes. "Then I am coming with you. And if anyone objects, they can argue with me later." In the end, 6 of them made the journey to the central chamber: Taiwan and Shimmer, Dr. Hyun Park, Ambassador Velthara, Captain Dongwoo Choi, representing colonial security, and Yunji, who had simply refused to be left behind, and whose father had given up trying to stop her. They traveled in a small transport, flying low over the forest toward the main precursor site. The ruins were glowing brighter now, visible for miles. The pillar of light in the central chamber had grown, piercing through the roof of the building and reaching toward the sky like a beacon. "Are you scared?" Yunji asked Taiwan quietly. "Terrified," he admitted. "Good. Me too. I think we would be stupid not to be." They landed near the entrance to the central structure. The building had changed since their last visit. Doorways had opened that had not existed before. Symbols crawled across the walls like living things. The air hummed with energy that made Taiwan's teeth ache. Shimmer led them inside. Her scales were pulsing with steady light, responding to the energy around them. She moved with confidence now, following a path only she could sense. The corridors twisted deeper and deeper into the structure. Taiwan realized they were going underground, far below the surface. Finally, they emerged into a massive chamber. It was impossibly large, too large to fit under the building they had entered. The walls curved upward into darkness. The floor was smooth and reflective like black glass. And in the center, the pillar of light waited, but it was not alone. Other pillars had risen around it, creating a circle. And in that circle, things were appearing: projections, holograms, memories, images from thousands of years of history, playing out like a theater of the past. "The precursors," Ambassador Velthara breathed. The images showed them. A species that had once been physical, like humans or Velkari. They had evolved intelligence, built civilizations, reached for the stars. But somewhere in their development, they had made a choice. Instead of spreading through the galaxy as conquerors or colonists, they had transformed themselves. They had become something new. A network of consciousness spread across countless worlds, watching and guiding younger species. They became caretakers, Dr. Park said, understanding dawning in her voice. They seeded this part of the galaxy with potential, then they waited to see what would grow. The pillars of light pulsed in response. The central pillar began to change, forming into something almost like a face. It was not a human face or a Velkari face. It was something universal: eyes, a mouth, the basic features that communicated expression. When it spoke, the voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It spoke in words, but also in colors that made Shimmer's scales flash with recognition. It spoke in feelings that bypassed language entirely. "You have come. Representatives of 2 young species, we have watched you both. We have questions." The presence was overwhelming. Taiwan felt like he was being seen through, every thought and feeling laid bare. Beside him, Shimmer pressed close, her scales providing comfort and support. "Ask your questions." Ambassador Velthara said, her voice steady despite the fear Taiwan could see in her eyes. The precursor intelligence did not start with easy questions. It showed them visions, scenes from human history, wars, destruction, moments of terrible cruelty, then scenes from Velkari history, rigid caste systems, the disposal of defective worms, species conquered and absorbed into their empire. Both your kinds have brought suffering to the galaxy. Why should we permit you to continue? Captain Choi stepped forward. Because we learn. We grow. Yes, we have made mistakes. But we try to do better. We are not perfect. But we are working toward something better. The Velkari claim perfection, the precursor voice said. They claim the Song of Bonding represents the height of evolution. Yet they destroy worms who do not fit their standard. This is not perfection. This is fear. Ambassador Velthara flinched, but did not look away. You are correct. We have been afraid of what we do not understand. We have called it tradition, but it was simply fear wearing a respectable face. We were wrong. Admitting error is the beginning of wisdom, the precursor said. But it is only a beginning. The scene shifted. Now it showed humans. Corporate greed, environmental destruction, wars fought over resources and pride. Humans adapt rapidly, but they also destroy rapidly. They consume worlds, they fight among themselves. Why should we believe they will not bring chaos to the galaxy? Dr. Park opened her mouth to answer, but Taiwan spoke first. Because we also save things everyone else throws away. The precursor presence focused on him. It felt like standing under a spotlight that could see into his soul. Explain. You have been watching us, Taiwan said. His voice shook, but he kept going. You have been watching what we do. You saw what I did with Shimmer. You saw a human child find something the whole galaxy said was worthless and refuse to accept that judgment. That is what humans do. We see potential. We find value where others see garbage. We are messy and imperfect, and we make terrible mistakes. But we also create chances where none existed before. He moved closer to the pillar, Shimmer at his side. Shimmer was going to be killed. Not because she was dangerous. Not because she was broken. Because she was different. She spoke a language her own people had forgotten. She carried genetic memory from before the song, from when the Velkari learned from your people, from the ancient ones. She was a bridge to the past, and they were going to destroy her. The chamber was silent except for the humming of energy. Taiwan's heart hammered in his chest, but he kept talking. I am just a kid. I am not special. I am not a great diplomat or a powerful leader. But I saw her and I knew she mattered. I knew throwing her away was wrong, so I did something about it. That is what humans do. We break rules to save things that matter. We make connections where they are not supposed to exist. We refuse to give up on people, even when giving up would be easier. Shimmer's scales were glowing brilliantly now, showing patterns of support and agreement. The precursor presence was watching them both intensely. You argue for compassion, the precursor voice said. But compassion alone is not enough. Intelligence without wisdom leads to destruction. Strength without empathy leads to tyranny. What makes you worthy? Nothing, Taiwan said, and that got everyone's attention. We are not worthy. Not yet. We are young species. We are going to keep making mistakes. Humans will keep being too aggressive and too reckless. Velkari will keep being too rigid and too traditional. But we are learning. Shimmer and I are proof that we can learn. A human child and a rejected worm figured out how to communicate using a language that has been dead for thousands of years. If we can do that, imagine what we can do with more time. He gestured to the others. My mother is a scientist who changed her mind when the evidence demanded it. Ambassador Velthara admitted her people were wrong about something fundamental to their culture. Captain Choi learned to trust what he did not understand. Yoonji became friends with someone she used to ignore. We are all changing, growing. Is that not worth something? The precursor presence was silent for a long time. The pillars of light pulsed slowly, as if thinking. Then new images appeared. Other species. Dozens of them. Hundreds. All the species the precursors had evaluated over thousands of years. Many species have stood where you stand, the precursor voice said. Most failed. They argued their greatness. They presented their accomplishments. They demanded to be judged worthy based on what they had achieved. But worthiness is not measured in accomplishments. It is measured in choices, in what you do when no one is forcing you, in who you save when saving them brings you no benefit. The images shifted, showed Tae-Wan breaking into the holding facility, showed him leading Shimmer to safety, showed him spending days learning to communicate with her when he could have turned her in for a reward. This human child made a choice. He saved a life that was condemned. He did not save it because it was useful. 6 months had passed since the evaluation. New Haven Colony looked different now. The precursor ruins were no longer mysterious monuments to a lost civilization. They were active research sites where human and Velkari scientists worked side by side. The ruins responded to both species now, especially when Shimmer was present. Her color language had become the key to unlocking knowledge that had been dormant for thousands of years. Tae-Wan stood outside the research station, watching the morning sun rise over the forest. Shimmer was coiled beside him, but she was much larger now. She had grown rapidly over the past months, her body stretching to nearly 20 feet long. Her scales had transformed too. Where they had once been dull silver, they now shimmered with iridescent colors that shifted constantly. She was beautiful. Ready for another day? Tae-Wan asked her. Her scales pulsed with eager greens and bright yellows. Yes, she loved the work they did together. Every day they learned more about the precursor language. Every day they helped translate more of the ancient knowledge locked in the ruins. Dr. Park emerged from the research station, carrying 2 cups of tea. She handed one to her son. Ambassador Velthara sent a message this morning. 3 more worms like Shimmer have been identified in Velkari space. Instead of disposing of them, they are being brought here for training. Training? Tae-Wan asked. In the color language, the Velkari High Council has officially recognized it as their ancestral communication method. They want to preserve it now instead of destroying it. His mother smiled. You started something important, Tae-Wan. The Velkari are changing their entire approach to worms who do not sing. They are calling them memory keepers now instead of defective. Tae-Wan felt warmth spread through his chest. 3 more worms would live instead of die. That was good. That was progress. Captain Choi also sent a report, Dr. Park continued. The Joint Human Velkari Defense Initiative is working well. Both species are learning from each other. The Velkari are teaching us their advanced shield technology. We are teaching them our adaptive tactical systems. Is he still angry about the whole stealing an alien thing? Tae-Wan asked. His mother laughed. No. Though he will never admit it, I think he respects what you did. He has recommended you for a special Civilian Achievement Award. That was unexpected. Tae-Wan did not know what to say. He had not saved Shimmer for awards or recognition. He had done it because it was the right thing to do. Yoonji came running up the path from the colony. She had changed over the past 6 months, too. She spent most of her free time at the research station now, studying xenolinguistics. She wanted to become a translator, she said. Someone who could help species understand each other. Tae-Wan, Shimmer. Yoonji was breathless with excitement. You need to come to the central chamber right now. The precursor system is displaying something new. They hurried to the main precursor site. A crowd had already gathered. Scientists, colonists, Velkari visitors, all of them staring at a massive holographic display that floated above the central chamber. It showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of points of light scattered across it. What is it? Tae-Wan asked. It is a map of precursor sites, one of the scientists explained. Active sites. There are thousands of them, spread across dozens of star systems. The network is much larger than we thought. Ambassador Velthara stood at the center of the crowd, studying the map with intense focus. She noticed Tae-Wan and waved him forward. The system activated this display an hour ago. We believe it is showing us what is possible. All the knowledge and technology the precursors left behind. It is an invitation to explore, to learn, to grow into something worthy of inheriting all this. Shimmer moved to the holographic display. Her scales began pulsing with patterns, communicating with the precursor system. Tae-Wan had learned to read her color language fluently now. He did not need translation software anymore. He understood her as easily as he understood human speech. She says the network is pleased with our progress. Taewon translated. Both species have shown good faith. We are sharing knowledge instead of hoarding it. We are protecting life instead of destroying it. The precursors want to reward that. Reward it how? Dr. Park asked. Shimmer's scales shifted to show new patterns. Images formed in the holographic display. Technology, medical advances, methods of faster-than-light travel that humans and Valkyrie had not yet discovered, solutions to energy problems, ways to restore damaged ecosystems. The knowledge was vast and incredible. It is giving us access, Taewon breathed. All of it. Everything the precursors learned over thousands of years. It is ours if we can prove we will use it wisely. The crowd erupted in excited conversation. This was beyond anything they had hoped for. The precursor inheritance was not just ruins and relics. It was a complete library of advanced knowledge. But Shimmer's scales suddenly flashed urgent red. Taewon held up a hand for silence. There is a condition, he said. The knowledge is available, but only to those who approach it together. Humans and Valkyrie must work as partners. If either species tries to claim it exclusively, the network will shut down. The precursors only help those who help each other. Ambassador Velthara and Captain Choi looked at each other. Then simultaneously they nodded. Agreed, the ambassador said. We will share everything we learn. Equal partners. Equal partners, Captain Choi confirmed. The holographic map pulsed with approval. Access granted. The precursor network opened itself to them. The months that followed were transformative. Research teams spread across the galaxy, visiting precursor sites, learning from the ancient network. Human and Valkyrie scientists published joint papers. Engineers from both species built new technologies together. Medical researchers shared discoveries that extended lifespans and cured diseases. But more important than the technology was the cultural change. Humans and Valkyrie were learning to respect each other's differences. The Valkyrie were becoming less rigid, more open to new ideas. Humans were becoming more thoughtful, less reckless. Both species were growing in ways that made them better. Taewon continued his work with Shimmer. They became the primary translators for the precursor network, helping others understand the color language that was key to accessing the deeper knowledge. More memory keeper worms arrived, and Taewon helped train them. Some bonded with human partners. Others bonded with Valkyrie who were willing to learn the old ways. One evening, Taewon and Shimmer returned to the small chamber where they had first begun their work together. The old precursor structure in the forest, half buried and forgotten. It looked different now. The symbols on the walls glowed softly, responding to their presence. Hard to believe it has only been 6 months, Taewon said. It feels like a lifetime. Shimmer's scales shifted through complex patterns. Colors and light flowed across her body in ways that went beyond simple communication. She was showing him something deeper. Memories. Her memories from before they met. The fear of disposal. The loneliness of being rejected by her own kind. The desperate hope that somehow, somewhere, someone would understand her. Then newer memories. The moment Taewon opened her cell. The first time he showed her the precursor texts. The growing friendship as they learned to communicate. The terror of facing the precursor evaluation. The triumph of survival. The joy of being valued instead of discarded. You saved me too, Taewon said quietly. I was nobody before I met you. Just a quiet kid that everyone ignored. You gave me purpose. You showed me that being different is not a weakness. It is a strength. Shimmer's scales pulsed with warm oranges and soft pinks. Affection, gratitude, love. The bond between them had grown beyond simple friendship. They were partners in the truest sense. Two beings from different species, different worlds, who had found each other and changed the galaxy in the process. The precursor system asked what made us worthy. Taewon said. I think I understand now. It is not about being perfect. It is not about being powerful. It is about choosing to see value where others see waste. It is about refusing to give up on people, even when everyone says they are broken. He looked at Shimmer. This magnificent being who had been condemned to death for being different. She looked back at him with those intelligent, understanding eyes. Her scales began to shift through a new pattern. Something Taewon had never seen before. It was complex and beautiful, layers of color and light that seemed to tell a story. He focused on the pattern, reading the color language that had become his second speech. And then he understood. Shimmer was showing him her true name, not the name humans had given her. Her real name in the ancient tongue of the precursors. The name meant something like, the one who carries the old light forward into the new darkness. It was perfect. It described exactly who she was. A bridge between past and future. A keeper of ancient knowledge bringing it forward to help young species find their way. That is beautiful, Taiwan said. He had tears in his eyes. Thank you for trusting me with it. Shimmer moved closer, coiling around him gently. Her scales showed peaceful blues and contented greens. They sat together in comfortable silence as the night deepened around them. The precursor symbols on the walls glowed softly. Ancient blessings watching over a boy and a worm who had proven that worthiness was measured in compassion, not conquest.